Chill Girl Chrissy here, Alderman in Ward 6. Your Chill and Heal host. We're going to fuel your mind, body, and soul with goodness and a whole lot of truth. And I am so excited. Steve Stepanek is in the studio today, and you've been on my show how many times? From Boston, I mean, not Boston, Florida,
DC, Florida, all over. I taught you how to do a Zoom in on your show.
Yes, you were my first Zoom call, which was great. So Steve Stepanek, a former chair of the Republican Party of New Hampshire, former state rep, and senior advisor to President Trump, and you've been all around from Florida to D.C. to New Hampshire, and so grateful he came in one piece. It was
a little snowy up
little
north.
Snowy.
I live up in the North Country, up in Thornton, just outside of Waterville Valley, so they're getting some lovely snow, which they love up there, but it was a long ride down.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. This is so great. And, so what's been happening? I figured we would just kind of chill and chat and talk about, so many great things.
Well, it's been an exciting time. I've been spending a tremendous amount of time down in D.C., part of the transition team and also part of PIC, which is the Presidential Inaugural Committee. And so we have been doing some amazing things. I'm sure you've been seeing a little bit of it on the news, which is really just the tip of the iceberg. Mm-hmm. The amount of craziness that's going on, has been going on down in D.C. is just amazing. One of the areas I'm working in is Department of Education, which, as you know, the president wants to close down. We have a little bit of work to do before we get to that point, but we are going through. One of the first things when the team landed, we had people who went in the day that the president said I do. They said I do at the same time and went into the department. First job was to go through the website and remove any references to DEI in adherence to the president's executive order. And we figured it would take 2 or 3 days, maybe 4 days. 4 weeks later, we're just finishing up. It was everywhere. The DEI had been embedded in every website, every link, every document. We had to go through thousands upon thousands of documents to purge all of the DEI that they had put in. And going through it all, what was amazing, I mean, obviously they think we're a little stupid, but the head of the diversity committee, just before the president was inaugurated, changed the name to Employee Engagement Committee, thinking that we wouldn't figure out that it was, they're trying to hide, which is not working. Yeah. But we're going through and this is not just Department of Education, these are all the different departments that we're going through and really looking at what people do. I find it amazing, first of all, that people are all freaked out that they have to go to work in the office. Oh my goodness. And we put out an email, Elon Musk put out an email that said, what did you do last week? And everybody's, totally up in arms. How dare they ask me what I did last week?
Oh, they don't want accountability?
None whatsoever.
No transparency?
None whatsoever. And of course, one of the issues that we have is that there's been no accountability. Nobody's been in the office for months and months. Not months, years. 5 years, nobody's been in the office. And so they really have lost track of a lot of their employees. Some of them may not still be working for the government, but their checks are going out every week. And part of asking them to email what they did was to find out if they were reading their emails and answering their emails and actually working for the federal government, which I think is sort of an important issue to discover. Are you working? Are you alive? Are you there?
And what are you doing? And what are you accomplishing? And what is your job, your role?
The biggest thing was to find out if they exist. And if they're working, I mean, we're finding people who over the last 5 years have moved out of D.C., you know, people who have a part-time job running a real estate company. You know, they've got 2 or 3 other remote jobs. So there's a lot of shenanigans going on that we have to make sure. Ultimately, there's a lot of good people who are working for the federal government, but there's a lot of people who are ripping off the federal government as well, and there's no accountability, and we're just bringing accountability and saying, you know, if you're working for the government and you're doing a good job, hey, that's great. That's what we want you to do. But there's so many people who are not doing that, who are not, you
That's
know,
crazy.
They're just, you know, basically scamming the American taxpayers. And so what we are doing is looking for accountability. We're looking for transparency. And, you know, I sort of get a charge out of watching all of the newscasters, not the Fox newscasters, but, you know, I also watch the other ones to know what the other side is doing. And it's actually quite comical. I get out my popcorn and watch for a half hour as they melt down. But they're like shocked at what the president is doing. And I'm like, I was working on his campaign since January of 2023. I go all the way back to the president to 2015. But, you know, and I remember when one of the first questions I asked the president when I was at an event out in Iowa, and this was in February 2015, and I was talking to all 17 candidates who were running for president at that time, and I asked everybody one question: what are you going to do about the secret government that runs this country, i.e. the federal bureaucracy? And everybody gave me these politically correct answers. I go to Donald Trump and he says, well, Representative, we're going to have to drain the swamp and fire them all. And guess what? He's been saying that for 10 years. So now he's finally in the position where he's doing what he said he was going to do, and people are all freaking out. Why? This is a man who believes in promises made, promises kept. And that's what he's doing. He's being very clear about it. He is being very transparent about it. And unlike a lot of politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, Donald Trump believes if I made a promise and a commitment to the voters of America who voted me into office, it's my job to fulfill that promise. And unfortunately, we have a lot of politicians, and I'll have to say even some Republicans, who will get out there and make all these great promises to people about what they're going to do, and they're going to cut taxes, and they're going to control waste, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that. And then they get in office and they have an instant case of amnesia.
That's it.
And they totally forget about what they told everybody. What? No, I didn't say that.
What? And then excuse after excuse, you know, which is terrible.
Right.
We need promises made, promises kept.
And
President Trump.
And that's what we need at all levels of government.
Yes.
And I think that you know, as everything unfolds, I think the president is obviously hitting the ground, not running. He's doing 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, he came out of the gate, you know, rubber burning, screaming down the road, and it's wonderful because he's getting stuff done. They're uncovering so much stuff. And when you look at what's going on in Washington, and I've been spending a lot of time down there, and to watch not only the Democrats meltdown, and not only watch the bureaucrats freak out, but you know, a lot of Republicans and a lot of the lobbyists and everybody else, they're all freaking out too because, you know, they've got their connections with the House and the Senate, but they've also over the years built up significant connections within the deep state, within the bureaucracy of every agency. And all those people are getting fired. So now all of a sudden the lobbyists are sitting there saying, where do I go? Who do I talk to? And
Who do I dine?
none of them have connections into, very few of them have connections into Trump world. And so they're at a loss too. So the entire city of Washington, D.C., other than all of us Trump people, is in complete meltdown because they don't know what to do. And it's a wonderful thing to watch because all of them have been at the public feeding trough that has been fed by the taxpayers, and there's a reason why the 6 counties that surround Washington, D.C. are the 6 richest counties in the country, because there's so much money going through everybody's hands. When you look at some of the stuff that Elon is exposing, yes, okay, they spent $20 million doing a video for Sesame Street for Iraq. Well, that sounds crazy as it is. But the real issue is, how much does it cost to create a video?
Right.
And then, maybe that's $1 million. What happened to the other $19 million? I mean, how many NGOs, non-governmental organizations, did that money go through where everybody's taking a piece of the pie before they ultimately produced and sent this tape over to Iraq? And that is just repeated over and over and over and over again. I mean, the fact that Biden gave, months before Trump took office, sent, Stacey Abrams, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with her. She's the great denier, although Democrats never deny an election, but she's the great denier that she actually won the Georgia gubernatorial race, and even though she lost by 5 points or whatever it was.
Yep.
But she had a little organization, and in 2023 they raised a grand total of $100. So obviously no office, no staff, just she filed the paperwork, spent $100 to register it, and that was it. Guess how much money she got in 2024?
How much?
It wasn't $1 million, it wasn't $10 million, it wasn't $100 million, it wasn't $1 billion, it was $2 billion.
What?
She got $2 billion of money for green projects. And she had instructions that she had to distribute this money over a 3-week period. Obviously, after she took out
3 weeks.
Well, this was before the president took the oath of office. And they actually sent her instructions showing how well-versed she was. She apparently asked them, well, how do I do a grant? How do I write grants for people to give the money to?
Yeah.
And they sent her instructions on how to do grants. It's like the money that was pouring out, the money that was being wasted.
Or just bleeding us.
It was just unbelievable. So the fact that Elon is getting out there and exposing all of this, and people are like, all upset, oh, he's too powerful, he's too this, he's too... This guy is the richest man in the world. He doesn't need to do this. This is, this is something he's doing for the good of the country. And he believes in it. Just like President Trump doesn't have to do this, doesn't have to risk his life twice already.
Yes.
Because he's a very wealthy man. He's a billionaire in his own right. And he's doing it because he loves this country and he wants to turn this country around. And I will tell you, having seen what is going on in these various agencies, if we hadn't won this election in 2024, I don't know whether we would have been able to recover if we had had four more years of the Democrats, the progressives, and Kamala Harris. It would have been, this country would have been beyond recognition and beyond saving, I think. So this is going to turn out to be, and history will look back at this and say this was a pivotal moment in the history of the United States. This was when the United States of America was saved.
Saved. Oh my gosh. Transparency, accountability, that's what we've been needing, and he is delivering, and we're so grateful. And we do need to do this from the grounds up, you know?
I
I mean-
believe that what we need to do is we need to ask our state leaders, our municipal leaders, our city leaders, to take a page out of Donald Trump's book and start looking at how are we going to look. Now, I don't think the waste and fraud and corruption is any close to anything that's at the federal level here in New Hampshire. I know that you can always run a more efficient operation.
You can always be smarter with our money and make sure our dollars are working for the citizens,
Right.
and going in the right direction.
But I will tell you that, even at the local level, it's up to the voters to get involved. I know that as we look at what's going on in New Hampshire, one of the number one complaints of everybody is, our property taxes are going out of control.
Out of control.
And people who are retired or are getting close to retirement are like, I can't live here anymore. The property taxes are too high.
Yeah.
Well, what is driving property taxes? It's the cost of education. Now, I'm dating
and the waste of money. I mean, they spent $25.5 million on portables, and they, the city gave away, and I did not vote for this, gave away the land in the middle of the city at Beach Street, and now building an $80 million mega elementary school, which people really want the neighborhood schools. Like, this is insanity.
Well,
And not taking care of all the other schools. Did you know that there was a big project proposed for $71 million to fix all the schools, like 3 years ago? Even if you added an additional $20 or $30 million, that could have been taken care of. But instead, they have to do the $306 million project, which is the Beach Street, which is insane, and take care of only the 3 middle schools and nothing else with the other ones. I mean,
it's,
this is insanity.
I will tell you that, I've sat and listened to presentations on the budget that the State House is now working on, and one of the biggest issues is the cost of education. And I will tell you, we had a presentation, you were at that Right of Center meeting where we had the chairman of the Education Funding Committee and the Education Policy Committee who were making presentations at that event on this past Wednesday. And one of the things they said was, we've seen significant reduction in enrollment in New Hampshire.
Yes.
We've gone from 251,000 children in the K through 12 schools to 172,000. So that's like a 20%, 20 some odd percent drop. On the flip side, we've seen an 87% increase in the cost per student. Why is that? And you look at it and say, well, it used to be that we had 25 kids in a classroom. Then it was 20. I know in my little town of Thornton, we have 8.6 kids per classroom. And each classroom has a teacher and an assistant.
Wow.
This type of, and we have consistently dropping test scores.
Oh.
So our kids are not getting educated, number one. Number two, our cost per student is going through the roof. And the people, the parents, and the voters of all the towns and cities like Manchester need to get involved, need to understand what's going on, and need to hold these school boards and the teachers' unions that is driving this accountable, because this is not the direction that is working. One of the things that's going to happen in the Department of Education is that when we get all of our people finally certified and voted on by the Senate. So Linda McMahon should be voted on hopefully today or tomorrow, and she's going to be the new Secretary of Education. And then we still got to vote on the Undersecretary and the Deputy Secretary. But once we get our people in place, we're going to start going through and looking at all the various regulations that have been passed by over the years, both as Democrats and Republicans. And we're going to start eliminating regulations that don't make sense, regulations that don't benefit the kids. I mean, you know, we don't need regulations that benefit the unions. We don't need regulations that benefit special interests. We need regulations that benefit the kids. So we're going to significantly cut the number of regulations, and then we're going to block grant the money to the states. So instead of piecemealing it out and having 16 strings to it, we're going to just say, here's X number of dollars for you, New Hampshire, and it's up to you to figure out how to best spend that for the citizens and the kids of New Hampshire. And we're not going to tell you how to run things. You're going to run them yourselves, which means that the towns and the cities and the state have to become much more accountable, because they are going to, right now they roll back onto the, it's the federal government. Oh, the federal government said this. Oh, the federal government said that. We're going to take the federal government out of the picture.
Love it.
And you know, one of the big issues is, for example, special education. We spend $1 in $4, we learned on Wednesday, is spent on special ed. That's $1 billion. We spend $4 billion on education here in New Hampshire.
Crazy.
We spent $1 billion on special education. When the special education law was passed back in the, I want to say the 80s, I could be wrong, but it was a long time ago. And the federal government at that point said, oh yeah, we're going to cover 40% of the cost, and the states will pick up the rest. Well, they never got to 40%. And right now, they're not at 20%, they're not at 10%. They're around 6 or 7% of the grant of the $1 billion. The federal government picks up maybe $60 million, $70 million. Meanwhile, the regulations that come with that $60 or $70 million costs us, makes up approximately, if I remember my numbers right, between $300 and $400 million of the cost of special ed is made up by adhering to the regulations the federal government imposes. So they give us $80 million, and they impose $350, $400 million worth of costs on us, and that's supposed to be a good deal? So what we're going to do is say, we're going to take all those regulations away, and we're going to leave it up to, we're going to repeal them all. And one of the ways we can repeal them is the fact that many of these regulations were passed not by Congress, not by the Senate, but by bureaucrats. They overstepped their bounds. And last year, the Supreme Court came down with a decision. It was called the Chevron decision, which back in the 80s, I think it was 87, there was a Supreme Court decision that said, well, maybe, you know, the various agencies have more expertise, so they can formulate some of the rules and regulations after Congress passes a law. Well, that was okay back then. Obviously, the bureaucracy has taken huge advantage of this issue, and to the point where they're actually passing regulations that have no comparison to what the law was that was passed. So this is something that they are literally, and you talk about the secret government, and the Democrats are out there screaming about the secret government this and Trump's creating. We've already got a secret government. They're making laws. They're making laws through regulations that Congress never intended them to do. And now, because of the Supreme Court came in and said, you know what, you guys are right, they are overstepping their bounds, and they said they did away with the Chevron doctrine. Now we can go in and say, see that regulation that you passed as the bureaucracy? That wasn't what the Congress intended. We're doing away with that regulation. And if you want that, go to Congress and have Congress pass it. But in the meantime, we're doing away with that regulation. So we're going to be eliminating tens of thousands of regulations across the government, and in particular in the Department of Education. A lot of the regulations, a lot of the strings that were passed by the bureaucrats and also with huge input from the teachers' unions are going to be rolled back. So that's going to give the towns and the cities and the state tremendous amount of flexibility to really do what is the best for our kids, period.
Is exactly what we need.
Exactly.
So we need people to show up at the school board meetings and show up at the alderman meetings. And I know we only have 2 minutes, and get active and let our elected officials know where we stand.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
It becomes critically important going forward in 2025 and 2026 because the federal government is going to be reducing these regulations or eliminating these regulations, which is going to leave a void, and that's where we need the voters and the parents to get involved and to get feedback to the school boards and put people on the school boards who are going to be looking out for the best interest of the students, period. Not the teachers' unions, not the special interests, not building monstrosity buildings for stupid amounts of money, but putting the money where it does the best, which is investing in our kids. And that needs the involvement of every single voter, taxpayer, and parent in every city from Manchester all the way up to my little town of Thornton.
Thank you so much, Steve. This has been so awesome chilling with you. And we are empowering you to empower our community to get involved and make every child matter. Every child matter. So you have to go to your school board meetings. You have to go to your alderman meetings. Let your voice be heard. Get involved and
make a difference.
And make a difference. And until next time, stay chill and God bless America. Thank you so much.